Hello, welcome back. I'm Statman Dave, and today on the Squawka YouTube channel, we're going to be ranking the Ballon d'Or nominees from 2019 from worst to best. Before we dive in though, a little bit of numbers. The amount of possible ways we could rank these 30 is on screen right now. Now that is a big number, which means my ranking is going to be very, very different to yours. So let's take a look at the 30 nominees. There's a few players missing out. Liverpool fans, get in the comments below. Who do you think should be in the list out of your team that won the Champions League? We're talking Fabinho. We're talking Andy Robertson, Joel Matip, Jordan Henderson. He was man of the match in the Champions League final. What are they playing at? Anyway, Liverpool fans, get into the comments below, but also Chelsea fans, N'Golo Kante, United fans, Paul Pogba. There's too many players, and even Neymar missed out this season. On that note, let's have a quick look at how the winner is selected. French football magazine's editorial team are responsible for shortlisting 30 names for the Ballon d'Or. After the candidates are nominated, a jury consisting of journalists from all around the world vote for each player of their choice. Each country can be represented by only a single journalist. The journalists rank their top 5 players in each of these 3 categories. Number 1, individual and collective performances during the year. And number 2, the players' class. Are they behaving themselves off the field, and are they using their position of power to do good in the world of football, like Juan Mata? And number 3, finally, the final thing that gets to decide whether the player's going to win the Ballon d'Or or not is the player's career, of course, looking back what they've won in the last few seasons. After all of that, the player with the most points is declared the winner and lifts the Ballon d'Or. So let's get straight into the ranking. So I'm going to start with the worst, and for me, that is Hugo Lloris, the worst player in the Ballon d'Or nominees in 2019. Why do you ask, Dave? Well, errors galore in the last 3 seasons in the Premier League. 10 errors leading to goals, of course, in the last 12 months as well. Only second to Martin Dubravka. But anyway, let's move on to the next player. This is an interesting one because I think we've got players from a number of different teams. We've got Liverpool, we've got Man City, Barcelona, Ajax, Juventus, Benfica's got a little bit there, Arsenal, Napoli, Real Madrid, PSG, Spurs, and of course, Bayern Munich. So I think that I've got to look at PSG as a team that might be, contributing some players at the bottom of this list in terms of worst. PSG won Ligue 1. We all expect that. But they didn't win the League Cup. They also lost the Coupe de France. And you've got to look at those 2 players. I think Mbappe had a very good year in terms of his goal stats. But unfortunately for Marquinhos, PSG, of course, he's probably PSG's best player by a country mile. Fantastic in the Champions League. But in this list, we are going to get him right down the bottom. PSG have got to do much more. The round of 16 in the Champions League, after all that money they've spent. Marquinhos, a fantastic player, but PSG didn't achieve on the pitch. And I think for me, that puts Marquinhos maybe near the bottom of this list. There's a few different players around this list where I'm thinking, could be good, could be bad. I think De Ligt could be up there in terms of, his achievements over the year. I might throw Heung-min Son in here. Not the greatest season for Son. He had a good few games here and there, but unfortunately for Heung-min Son, they didn't win the Champions League. Of course, they got to the final and his impact on that game wasn't too big. But because we've got so many good players in here, I'm going to throw Heung-min Son round near the bottom, unfortunately. Doesn't mean he's a bad player. He's still in the best 30 players in world football right now. Let's move on to maybe Eden Hazard as well. Had a very, very good end to the year with Chelsea, of course, the Europa League run, dominating that final, which is directly involved in more goals than any other Chelsea player across all competitions. But for Real Madrid, he has looked absolutely rubbish. So I think he might be going closer to the bottom than we think. Another one that jumps out as well in terms of players that could have done a little bit better. You may be looking at a Koulibaly, but we've got young players in here as well. Thinking João Felix, who had a really, really good 2019, 19 goals, 10 assists, but he's still very, very young. If we're looking at the criteria of players' history, that probably puts João Felix into this similar bracket of 3 players. And maybe we're throwing Aubameyang in as well, because it's an interesting one. Aubameyang started the Premier League season really well, ended the season quite well. I think we're going to put Hazard above Aubameyang because, you think in Europa League, Hazard won the Europa League, was the best player in that tournament, got to rank it like that. Koulibaly didn't really get to the final, João Felix neither. So it's quite interesting. It's starting to look like a little bit of a decent list. I'm trying to think where we sort of move next, because it's looking okay so far. And then a guy jumps out right now, Riyad Mahrez, of course, AFCON champion. Fantastic in that tournament, but didn't really get into the Manchester City starting 11. So unfortunately, I miss Riyad Mahrez. I think we might have to dump him down the list somewhere. I think we might put him just above Koulibaly. Maybe, just above Koulibaly, just sitting
north of him. Got to look at some other players as well. Maybe someone like a Bernardo Silva, Ter Stegen's jumping out here. Donny van de Beek as well, actually. No, a wonderful season, but we're going to have to throw Hazard up a little bit more, I think, and throw him into this position. Of course, Donny van de Beek, second striker in Ajax's wonderful 4-2-1-3 formation. Donny van de Beek scored in the semi-final of the Champions League and the quarter-final. Of course, Ajax cleaned up domestically. What a player he is going to become. But maybe not quite there now, of course, if you're thinking about the history of it. Donny van de Beek's first time being nominated. So he's good. He's in and around the sort of zone, but we'll throw him in there. And the big guy, sticking on the similar type of height. We've got to look at individual player performances here. Kevin De Bruyne is someone we've not mentioned. Kevin De Bruyne was pretty much injured for a lot of 2019. So unfortunately, we're going to have to move him down the ranking system as well. 3 assists versus Spurs in the Champions League. Had a really good season when it comes to actually looking in the individual games, but the injury was pretty big. You're looking at his previous, though, one of the best midfielders in world football. So it's a bit of an interesting one. Where do we fit Kevin De Bruyne in? Get into the comments below. Where does Kevin De Bruyne go? Unfortunately, because he's not played, I think they might have to put him down quite far. But, of course, if he was playing every single week, he'd be very, very close to being the best or, top sort of 10 players. But because of, I think, the injury time, I'll probably drop him. I've got Riyad Mahrez is a difficult one. This is so difficult. That's what we're finding so far. Very, very difficult to decide. Is Mahrez ahead of him? Is Donny van de Beek ahead of him? Perplexing. I thought numbers were easy. This is very, 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 very difficult. I think we've got to look at some of his teammates as well for Manchester City. Manchester City, of course, the domestic domination they won. Bernardo Silva, again, won 4 trophies. This year, you're thinking the Nations League as well. He was probably the best player at that tournament. But his off-the-field antics haven't been great. So, unfortunately for Bernardo Silva, we're going to throw him down the list. I feel where we go now. Maybe a bit Karim Benzema. Again, Real Madrid have been pretty poor over the last 12 months. Benzema has been their shining light. Their top scorer, the guy that is scoring the goals at the moment. I think we'll just drop him in. It's difficult, though. Eden Hazard, Europa League for Chelsea. Not great. I suppose 3rd in the league. Individual performances. This is a tough one. Because Hazard, this season has been awful. Benzema's been good across both seasons. Benzema or Hazard? Get into the comments below as well. There's too many parts right now that we've got to look into these types of situations. It's too difficult to go. Another player, another striker, probably got put in there as well. Sergio Aguero's got to be knocking around there. Again, he scored the most goals in the Premier League in 2019. But City failing in the Champions League. They won the 3 trophies. So it's got to be up the list somewhere, their top goal scorer. But I wouldn't say he's, for the last 12 months been up there. Who are we going to go for now? This is where we're getting started to difficult. Mbappe's probably another one that needs to jump into this strikers category. Where does he jump down? Again, we mentioned PSG failed together, but he had a really, really good campaign. Kylian Mbappe was directly involved in 23 goals in Liga, 1.36 goals per game he was directly involved in. So he's got to go in there. Does he fit above Benzema, below Aguero? He's in the bracket. Aguero did do a lot domestic. This is so hard. We're putting Aguero to the top of our little striker bracket right now. Throw him in there. Lewandowski. We've got all the strikers out at the moment. Lewandowski this season, though, he is in disgraceful form. Scoring goals for fun. 1.5 goals per game this season. Scoring 12 in 8 in the Bundesliga. The man is probably the form centre-forward in European football right now in terms of natural number 9s. Ooh, we've missed a few players here. Antoine Griezmann. Unfortunately for Antoine Griezmann, Atletico Madrid didn't do too well. Yes, Griezmann scored 21 goals in all competitions last season, but Atletico really stumbled. Didn't win the league, didn't win the cup. Round of 16 in the Kings Cup in Spain, which is quite poor. I think in Champions League, Griezmann was probably Atletico's best player, but they crashed out in the round of 16. I think we've got to put Griezmann down the list somewhere. Again, very, very hard to rank him. Because you're thinking he's done more than Koulibaly, but probably less than Bernardo Silva, which is quite difficult. I feel maybe, but again, might move Bernardo Silva up a little bit. Might throw him north of Aubameyang. Aubameyang, has he been that? With Bernardo Silva, of course, he won the Nations League with Portugal and was player of the tournament. This is so difficult. This is so difficult. I think the goalkeepers, maybe we'll look at keepers next. Tadic. Where are you putting Tadic in? Well, Tadic, the Champions League, unbelievable. Only Lionel Messi was involved in more goals in the Champions League last season. Dusan Tadic, directly involved in 50 goals in 42 games in 2019. We can't ignore that. The fact that he's, the performances of Ajax as well, the 10 out of 10 in L'Equipe, the performance against Real Madrid, the Zidane turn versus Casemiro. Tadic has been one of the best forwards. You look in centre forwards, guys that can play between the lines in the world. It's so hard to put him in this bracket because he's around a load of really good players. And again, if you're thinking history, first time Tadic is here, but you've got to look at 2019. 50 goals directly involved in. That is incredible statistics. So we're going to knock him near the top area. Probably chuck in Raheem Sterling as well. Maybe just above Sergio Aguero. Raheem Sterling again, fantastic return in the Premier League, one of his best goal-scoring seasons. If his goal wasn't ruled out for VAR, City maybe could have progressed. But, the domestic treble that we keep talking about, Champions League, though, didn't quite hit the mustard. Which leads us on to, players like ter Stegen, goalkeepers. I think ter Stegen was up there, but again, they didn't do so well. Where are we going to put him? Is he a bigger impact than Eden Hazard? Probably not. Bigger impact than Aubameyang? Probably similar. So maybe drop him in here. Ter Stegen just sitting above Bernardo Silva. Right, so let's move on to, I think we've got to talk about that Liverpool group. We've got to get Liverpool in somewhere. Of course, they won the Champions League. I think their performances over the last 12 months have been absolutely incredible, losing to Manchester City by only a point in the league. But I think it's that Champions League glory that was such a, sort of big statement for them. And the reason why, you see in how many names they've got, the team with the most names in the Ballon d'Or list, which for me is completely correct. I think you've got to judge the Ballon d'Or, from my perspective, let's ignore the rankings for 1 second, from like a World Cup Champions League, who's achieved the most. But I think there's one player there that maybe not really in this category, a really, really, really good, a breathtaking performance off the bench against Barcelona in the semi-final of the Champions League. Great for the Netherlands as well, really bringing them back onto the map with the likes of Virgil van Dijk. That's Wijnaldum. I think we've got to put him in and around the mix. It's going to be difficult, this one. I don't know exactly where we sit him. Maybe just south of, maybe just north of Aubameyang. Let's drop him in there. Let's make a little bit of space for the guys. But it's one of these things where, what a season Wijnaldum had for both club and country. A big performance in the Champions League semi-final. Maybe, the consistency of those level of performance not quite there, but a huge player for Liverpool for that run. Now, though, we are on the top 10 players in European football for the last 12 months. Maybe they might not be. We don't know. We may throw them further down. I think there's a player we first got to talk about, and that is Matthijs de Ligt. What he did in the Champions League last season was beautiful. His performances at centre-half were absolutely fantastic. For a young player, he's going to be one of the top 5, top 10 players in the world for pretty much the rest of his career, his talent. But we could throw him in to a position so difficult. So hard, this list. And this is why you guys need to do it as well. I think we might drop him. Yeah, we'll throw him in a top. We'll throw him in there. He's probably the 10th best player in world football. Again, he's adjusting to life at Juventus. There has been the odd mistake this season, but for Ajax last year, the run to the Champions League, I think we can't look past that. That was sort of one of the best things we've seen in European football. The team like Ajax, bringing players through, signing the old players like Tadic and coming through, that they deserve that recognition. His move to Juventus, of course, that big money move, could have gone to anywhere in European football. He is that good. And I think that is his level of performances, top 10 player in European football right now. So I think just for my mind's sake, I'll put Messi with Ronaldo. Over in that situation. So we're looking at Mohamed Salah, Firmino, Virgil van Dijk, Mane, Alisson. I think Alisson's got to drop in here actually, maybe even a little bit further down. Great performances, Champions League, but injured this season. So for that reason, we'll probably have to throw him just in sort of that position. I think that was a good position for him. Just above Benzema in our list of rankings. So we've got Trent Alexander-Arnold, the best right back in the world. Where is Andy Robertson? I just can't, sorry. I'm going to bring this back. Where is Andy Robertson, the best left back in world football, yet he doesn't meet the top 30 players? So there's a name that's jumping out here. Not because of him this season, because he's probably been the best false nine in European football, Roberto Firmino. But you've got to think back to the Champions League last season. He had an injury hit 2019 where he was in and out of the side. But you've got to remember that Divock Origi, in fact, started the semi-final comeback against Barcelona. Firmino really struggled with injuries in 2019. But this season in the Premier League, probably been the best striker in there. I think it is his ability to bring players in, link with Mane, link with Salah. He's the link man. Again, you've got to give him credit. I think we've got to put him in the list. But maybe we'll sit him at just behind our friend De Ligt, ahead of Lewandowski. In terms of strikers. Now we're on to the big dogs, though. We really are on to the big dogs. How do we do this? Because you're looking at, right, Frankie Dion, best player in his position last season. In the last 12 months, best player in his position by a country mile for Netherlands and for Ajax. Ability to carry the ball out of the back, the performances that he's done. Of course, he was voted as the best midfielder in the UEFA Men's Award, the world-class performance against Real Madrid, 100% pass accuracy, 6 ball recoveries, 4 out of 4 tackles won, 3 clearances, 2 successful take-ons. Remember that picture of Vinicius Jr. and Luka Modric on their ass after Frankie Dion dribbled out of them. What a player he is. He is going to be one of the greats of Barcelona. So he, of course, is the best midfielder in the world. You're thinking central midfielder in the world. But you've got Ronaldo. You've got Messi. We've got Trent Alexander-Arnold, the best fullback in the world. Got Virgil van Dijk, probably the best centre-back in the world. Mane and Salah. This is getting very, 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 very difficult in terms of where we're going to put these. Probably going to go with Frankie next. Just a little bit of adjustment to Barcelona. £85 million move. But what a player. I think he's probably my favourite player in European football to watch. Get into the comments below. Who is your favourite player to watch in European football? De Ligt and De Jong. They're together in the list. I like to see that. One day they will be reunited. Hopefully. Next up, I think we've got to throw in Trent Alexander-Arnold. Of course, last season broke records, the most assists of any defender in the Premier League. Thinking 3 assists in the knockout stage of the Champions League, more than any other defender. Trent has pretty much maybe stepped the game up in terms of fullbacks. We knew Marcelo before. Now I think Trent and Kimmich are probably number 1 and 2, and Andy Robertson have got to be in there in terms of fullbacks. Best in the world, but Trent, hands down. You're thinking that semi-final, the ball to Wijnaldum to get Liverpool a bit of momentum, and then the quick thinking for Divock Origi, the performances through the season, going forward, so vital for Jurgen Klopp in the attacking third. The most creative fullback in the Premier League this season. Only De Bruyne has got more chances created than him. You've got to look at Trent Alexander-Arnold and think, wow, this guy is a monster. And for England fans, a really, really good thing as well. But now we're on to the top 5. How do we even order this? How do we do this? We've got a guy in Mohamed Salah that scores a penalty in the Champions League final, the composure to do that. We've got Sadio Mane that's, the joint top scorer with Mohamed Salah that season. How do we even split those guys up for it? For me, though, I think Mane's been better in the last 12 months. I think Mane's had a bigger impact for Liverpool. I'm going to put Salah, then we're going to go for Mane, I think. I think the big thing here is the performances at AFCON. You can't really separate Mane and Salah. They scored the same goals in the Premier League. They both won the Champions League last season. They both had massive impacts for Liverpool Football Club. But I think Mane's 4 goals in 6 games in AFCON was a little bit better. I think that puts him a little bit higher on the list. We're just going to have to give it a little bit of a rejiggle as we're coming in. But keep getting into the comments. Do you disagree with any of these positions? And maybe try this yourself at home, because this is one of the hardest things I have ever done. And I've done some pretty hard things in my life. But top 10. We've got our top 10. De Ligt, De Jong, Alexander-Arnold, Mohamed Salah, Sadio Mane. Now we're on to the big dogs, the top 3. The top 3 is going to be difficult. I think you've got to look at this. You're thinking Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, 5 goals in 2 Champions League knockout stages, a hat-trick against Atletico, 2 goals against Ajax. He pretty much tried to keep Juve in the tournament. You're thinking he led Portugal to the Nations League final, the hat-trick in the semi-final, free kick, the side foot, and the last goal that was classic Ronaldo. So difficult. You're thinking he won Serie A, meaning now he's got league titles in England, Spain, Italy. What do we do here? But I think if you're looking at the other guys in there, Virgil van Dijk, no player, of course, dribbled past Virgil van Dijk in the Champions League and the Premier League last season. Unbelievable stuff. Won the Champions League, 1 point behind Manchester City. And you're thinking Virgil van Dijk in defence, absolutely massive for Liverpool. Thinking the 3 0-0 draws that could have won them the league title. They needed 1 point. They could have picked up 1 goal. It's not really his category. 21 clean sheets in the Premier League. Virgil van Dijk at the heart of the defence. His physicality, his strength. Last season, he had the highest dual win rate in the Premier League of any outfield player. He's got to be in there. And of course, Lionel Messi. Time to read Lionel Messi's CV. It's going to take a bit of time for this last year. In 2019, he scored 22 goals in La Liga. Directly involved in 28 goals in 23 games. Won La Liga, won the best FIFA men's player, and of course won the European Golden Shoe. So difficult to break these 3 guys down. But I think for me, because of the lack of success of Juventus this season in the Champions League, I'm going to put Ronaldo at bottom. And of course, Messi did lift the European Golden Shoe. So you've got to look at that as he kind of beat Ronaldo in terms of scoring goals. Now, Messi versus Virgil van Dijk. What do we even do? Who is the best player in the world? Who is going to win the Ballon d'Or? This is a tough one. But I think if we look at the history, I think we've got to go back. I think if we're looking at individual player accolades, they're quite similar. Van Dijk winning the Champions League, Messi cleaning up with La Liga. But Messi maybe not doing it in terms of for Argentina as well. Something you've got to look at. Barcelona versus Liverpool Champions League semi-final. One team comes out on top, of course. That is Liverpool, and they go through to the final. But you're also thinking about history. In the last 2 seasons, Van Dijk, of course, moved to Liverpool in January. Liverpool then get to the Champions League final. They lose against Real Madrid. And then he gets to the Champions League final again and then wins it. That is pretty consistent in terms of getting to big tournaments. And of course, you're looking at he's Liverpool's best player in terms of most vital player, in terms of if you take him out the side, you would lose something huge for Liverpool. I think that's the thing. Same with Messi though. Same with Messi. This is why it's so difficult. Who are we going to do? We're going to do it right now. We're going to put Messi second place this year, unfortunately for Lionel Messi, and Virgil van Dijk, the best player in the Ballon d'Or nominees list in 2019. This has been very difficult. Of course, get into the comments below with your rankings of all these players. There's probably loads of... If I thought about this again, I'd be like, no, we've got to put Tadic above Lewandowski. You've got to move Firmino above Sterling. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. There's so many iterations of this, but please get into the comments below and give me yours. I've been Statman Dave. Subscribe if you're new to the Squawka YouTube channel, and we will see you